Hi there and welcome to Classic 15. These are coffee break conversations with classical music insiders, hoping to give you the best advice on how to break into and sustain a career in the classical world. I'm Jack Pepper, I'm a composer, radio presenter and author, and every episode we take a deep dive into an aspect of a classical career. Today, making your name in the digital space and being a digital entrepreneur. David Skudlik is our expert, the CEO and co-founder of Sforzato, a digital agency that helps develop websites, manage social media and provide a digital consultancy across classical music. They've worked for the likes of Nicola Benedetti and Christian Reif, and David is no stranger to Classique either, having coached many of Classique's young artists at their annual summer gathering. Well, I caught up with David on Zoom and began by asking him why he set up an agency in this space. What was the opportunity, the need that he spotted?
Well, to answer that question, I have to go back in time, actually pretty exactly 11 years ago. I was just finishing my cultural and media management studies at Hamburg Music School or Hamburg Conservatory. And at the last stretch of my studies, I got into a coding school, not related to the university, but basically got into coding for 10 weeks and had to choose a final project. And at that time, smartphones became massively available. I mean, every one of us would already have or would get their first, smartphone, iPhone, whatever. So a technological change was coming up because all websites would have had to be made mobile responsive, as we call it. So basically display websites nicely on that little screen. And I asked a very good friend of mine, or rather harassed him, Ray Chen, that him being, on the forefront of digital in terms of classical music would definitely need a new website. So I built a website for him as my final project. And little did I know that it kind of started my agency career, which is now going on for 11 years almost. And last year I brought on two partners. We rebranded as Sforzato, set up a new company or entity rather. Are 7 people now, and this is how it started.
And what are the most common sort of struggles, if you like, the most common things that clients bring to you, the thing that they're most commonly asking for help with?
Usually web design, so website design, or help with their social media channels, both content strategy-wise, production-wise, design-wise. So it's usually a mixture of all of this. And so some of our clients work out fairly holistically with us. So they came for a new website and stayed on for social media management or consulting. But those are our areas of expertise, is basically web design and development. So the tech part is huge, of course, as well as the creative part of social media productions.
So let's look at one past client of yours, Nicola Benedetti. Let's go to the sort of high-profile end of the spectrum. How would you help somebody with a very significant international profile and an online profile? How would you work with an artist of sort of that level? Say, what was the brief for Nicola Benedetti?
So in Nikki's case, that came through a very dear friend of mine, Charlotte Lee of Primo Artists, who manages Nikki in the US. And she, also being on the forefront of digital, suggested to Nikki that she actually was very much in need of just rebranding again, making it just more approachable on mobile especially. And also, a website or any website tends to take on more content over time as long as you leave it online. So every website is in a need of, kind of like a spring clean, so to say, every few years, I'd say. Or, at least rearranging things. And in her case, the timing worked out perfectly because we would actually launch just before she would win her Grammy for the Wynton Marsalis concerto album back then in early 2020. So just before the pandemic hit and shut everything down.
So if there was a sort of hit list of things a good website should be and do. Good photograph. The whole 50 to 60 second impact time is very interesting. Is there anything else you'd add to the list? Like what is a good website? What must it do?
I mean, my personal, best practices include fixed navigation, meaning the navigation, where you choose the biography, the schedule, the media section, the content section is somehow fixed, usually to the top of the screen. Even if you scroll down, it's always there. So you're saving the visitors a lot of time if it's always there and they can quickly jump back and forth. Again, going back in time, I was like in the early days of my career, apparently, this only was told to me like later, known as the guy who built those one-pager websites. I mean, it's not from a development process, it's not different, but as Ray's website, to this day, even if it's like the third version of it, it's still like one very long scrolling page, which of course is nice for smartphones. Again, I mean, you don't miss any information. You can just keep scrolling, and that sometimes makes actually people explore the site further after they've got the info they were originally coming for. So if you don't have too much content on your website or decisively keep it down to the most important things, I to this day would still recommend a one-page website, at least as a landing page. Like you can always dive deeper, but like the very first website people come to, which is usually the homepage, maybe has a 2-paragraph bio, your next 3 concerts, your absolutely most amazing video at that time, and your most recent album and the contact data. I mean, to get those things in front of the eyes is very important, I think. And then people can dive in deeper.
And how does this relate to an emerging artist? We've mentioned Nicola Benedetti, but somebody who's looking to really gain their first significant online profile in the digital space, and this could be social media as well as a website. How would you work with a young artist, an emerging name? How maybe would your advice change?
To stay on the topic of website, I mean, in terms of emerging artists, it's often easier because there's not yet so much content, which is great because less is always more in this case as well. It can be very nicely presented on a sleek website. And then, of course, for people to get to this website, I mean, we need to get the name out, and that these days very much happens on social media or, in a personal meeting. But the website, in a way, is a great thing because, like, it's the only place on the internet you have almost complete control of in terms of design and functionality. With social media, you have to play the game of the platforms, be nice, do what the algorithms want. But luckily there are strategies for that as well.
So what does that mean? So a good social media use, and I'm conscious that the answer could be very different depending on the platform. But what would be, we've done the list for a website. What would be your list for good social media use?
There are really like 2 things that are very indispensable when you want to make it big on social media. Of course, there's every post literally has to provide value of sort to your audience, and value can be a lot of things. I mean, it can be entertaining. We all know how much we like entertaining stuff. It can be informative. It can be inspirational or educational, and that valuable posts, they have to come up in a fairly constant pattern. So continuity are the 2 things I would point out to start with.
How do you work your way around with an algorithm? How do you work out what works if you are starting out?
So working around or against algorithm doesn't work. Again, like you have to play the game of the platforms. There's an exception which I want to like briefly bring in, is basically creating your own platform, and that would be an extension of your website, and that would be what we call in marketing DTC, direct to consumer. This could be, of course, e-commerce, but it could also be, merch in terms of when you're an artist, but also creating an email list or a WhatsApp broadcast channel. I mean, this is, for many people, this is kind of under the radar still, especially in the performing arts world, because of course it's sexier in a way to get a lot of likes and engagement of any kind on and publicly on social media. But if you have someone's email address, or even like they sign up to your like WhatsApp broadcast channel, yeah, the spam filter might be still in the way. Otherwise, and their crowded inbox, but otherwise you're getting through to them. And this is like heavily underutilized, in my opinion.
Is there a particular platform, social media-wise, that you find is especially effective? And I know that's a very general question because it depends what you're trying to achieve, but we have so much choice now, not just in content, but actually in terms of platforms. For a classical artist, is there a particular platform that you find you personally really enjoy working with and that really does the things you want it to? Personally,
it's Instagram, hands down. As you know, I was lucky to get in at a time with the channel that is now our agency's channel called Sforzato, and it was formerly known as David's Dearest, which is still my newsletter brand now. So I just like made a, kind of like split between the two. But Instagram to this day is like the thing I enjoy the most. But for some artists who started early, they might have amassed a big Facebook following. So I wouldn't neglect that. And of course, someone starting out should definitely look into TikTok. But we have all the discussions where it might go and what it does. And it works differently. And that's why everyone tries to, TikTok their way or like turn their platform into a TikTok clone. So TikTok is very much on the forefront of picking or even setting up new trends. And that one trend is making everything a lot shorter. So if you can work with 8 seconds from drop to punchline or even less, this might be your platform.
Is it possible for an emerging artist to establish themselves without a social media presence? Is it now a decisive factor in whether you get that big gig, that big record label? Is it possible to establish yourself without social media now?
I wouldn't say it's impossible. You're just kind of like not taking full advantage of what's out there in a way. Earlier, you needed to pay someone, namely a PR agency, to break it to you. Basically, you would pay for their contact and basically presenting you in front of the right people. Now that can be done through all the before mentioned social media channels. And I know for a fact that especially record labels are very much looking at numbers, not even just following, because that can be kind of a vanity metric, but, engagement, remixes, stuff like that, because now every record is, of course, made available to the whole world via streaming. So a high engagement / following / let's reach of any artist out there, you can, and they probably have their formulas, you can probably predict fairly well what any given artist might be able to reach with their album, with their single. Especially on that recording contract part, socials do play a big role. Or reach of any kind. I mean, if you can convince the record label that you're not known on social media, but you're, have direct contact with 5 huge media outlets and they love to bring you on their shows or feature you on their podcast or newsletter, this might be a way in as well. But then again, I mean, what's the reaction of us? We hear a new name, we check them out. Either we go directly on Instagram or TikTok, look for them, or we Google them. And then that's where the website should come up first, or socials. They should be there, or at least fan accounts should be there, or something should be there.
So just finally, David, what would you say is your golden rule, your absolute must do in online work, whether that's websites or social media? For an artist listening, what is your golden rule for good online practice?
It's not necessarily just regarding social media or digital marketing. It's more, just do it, get more proactive, be on the forefront. I mean, kind of like design the way you want to go in a way. I mean, I read a nice quote yesterday and I've unfortunately forgot who said it, but basically, in a way, you can never overtake someone if you follow them in their footsteps. do with that what you want. But, like the Nike claim, the famous Nike claim, just do it very much applies, especially to an industry which is in heavy competition with many other things people can spend their leisure time with. So that might sound harsh, but nobody's really waiting for us. So it's kind of like part of our job, be it, on the artistic side or on the administrative or marketing side to get going.
In a way, we're all making noise, just in a different space.
That's very true.
David Skudlik, thank you so much. A treat.
Thank you, Jack. It's been great to be on here.
And a pleasure to have your company too. If you enjoyed our chat, there are plenty more on the usual podcast platforms and online at classic.com. You can listen to every single episode in our Classic 15 series there, as well as catch up on video on demand and the latest opportunities. And on that note, don't forget to follow at Classic Music on social media for the very latest updates. We have been speaking all about social media after all. Until the next time, though, thank you for joining me, Jack Pepper. Keep up the music, and I hope to hear you or see you at a concert, or indeed after our chat today, online very soon.